Hey, what's up, everybody? So we're here to play our third horror game, quote-unquote horror game, of the month of October. And this one, and to get kind of like a break a little bit as well from like my marathon of the Shining series, and before we start the next one, which is going to be Police Quest, which there's like 8 or so games. I think there's like 8 adventure games, and then there's like first-person shooter. There's like the SWAT games. And then I'll probably play Ready or Not. There's a lot of controversy about that here in like summer of 2025. But it's like a SWAT game. And then it's kind of rooted, in my opinion, in from what I've seen of it, in SWAT 4, which was, again, like a SWAT simulator. So we'll play SWAT. I think it's SWAT 3, SWAT 4. I don't know. I have there's like other games. I think I only found one of them that are more obscure, like within like the Police Quest / SWAT series. And then Ready or Not is kind of like a spiritual successor, so we'll end with that, which is fun because it's like a more modern take on all that. But for now, we're going to play Slay the Princess. And Slay the Princess is... I will slip. It's a visual novel, not of the erotic kind. Which is, I know, unusual, I guess, if you follow me on BitChute. But here we go. So it's made of Ren'Py, which is excellent. It's got like these hand-drawn black and white, kind of sepia tone almost. I don't think it's like pure black and white, and there's like some browns and stuff too. And then there's some reds occasionally for blood and other horror-based things and whatnot. And so the way it works is you kind of go through like a series of, like, the premise is very straightforward. You just go and you can slay a princess. And then there's a guy who does the voices. There's 2 people. There's a woman and a guy. The guy is much better as a voice actor than the woman. The woman is not the best. It's serviceable, so that's fine. But the guy does a decent job, and he does like multiple different like voice tones. So they definitely spent a lot of their money on like that voice actor for him. The woman does a decent job in that sometimes the princess has like a different personality, and so she does a good job with that. It's kind of stilted. Like American voice acting for games generally. Like I refuse to play Nikki Goddess of Victory, for example, in English because the English voice actors are not great. And so I would say this woman's probably about that level. But the guy who does the narration and all the various like other kind of stuff, he's pretty good. Like he's not fantastic. Like he's no like the guy from Final Fantasy 16 and Clair Obscur, but he's still pretty good. So yeah, that's good. Okay, and this is definitely like a single A or double A budget game, but I enjoy it. I like visual novels generally, of different varieties, and so you know when I started, I was like, oh, this is a visual novel. That's pretty good. And the way this game works is that you have a lot of variability. It's not like you're stuck on one path. Like you can do different paths and different orders and all that. And so what we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna go through my path till I get to like the end of the actual game, like the path I took, and then we can kind of talk more broadly a little bit about how it all falls together at the end. So yeah, so right now we're gonna do kind of like the normal kind of plot storytelling aspect review that I do for most games, and then we'll have like a little like come together moment at the end, a little fireside camp, if you will. So the game starts off, and it's chapter 1, the hero and the princess, and we're told by the narrator. A lot of when I say we do stuff, it's because the narrator tells us what to do, or like sometimes we make choices. So we're told by the narrator that we're here in the woods and we got to find a cabin and go slay a princess there, because if we don't slay her, it's going to be the end of the world. We then can question him, and he's super sketchy, like sketchy as fuck. Like question about why the princess, do we really have to do this? Can no one else do it? Like there's a lot of questions to be asked in this juncture to kind of like figure out what's going on. And then, but for the first path through, I decide that I'm just going to leave and head in the other direction. And we find ourselves in the cabin anyway, right? Because, oh, I guess the path led to the cabin. That's so funny. Ha ha ha. So then we decide to turn around and walk away again. And then he gets super mad, and we run into the cabin again. So then we decide we're just going to keep moving away and keep meandering about. And then we start seeing the cabin like in the woods, like not like, because normally the cabin's like up on a hill. And then we see like a whole bunch of cabins, and there's like an infinite number of cabins. And we get told we like destroy the world and we don't give a fuck about anybody, including the narrator and including everyone else. And then dun dun dun, the world ends. And then we get chapter 2, the stranger. And the chapter 1's for we'll just keep going with it. Okay, so chapter 2, the stranger. So we're back in the woods, but now there's a giant wall around the whole forest, and we can question that and be like, the fuck's with this wall? It's like, I don't know, maybe the wall got put here to protect people from wandering in here when they shouldn't be here, or from leaving if they're not supposed to leave. And you're like, okay, asshole. And now we get the voice of the contrarian. And so when you get to these, there's different chapter 2s, and each of the different chapter 2s have like a different person that speaks as well. So there's the narrator always, and then generally there's the narrator, and then there's different voices. So in this path where we refuse to go into the cabin, we get the voice of the contrarian. And so the voices, the secondary voice, is always kind of rooted in like how we acted in like the first chapter that got us killed and brought us to the second chapter. Right? Okay, and then there's a third voice, which is the voice of the hero, right? So the hero and the princess. And sometimes the hero appears in the first chapter, but when you kind of avoid any kind of dealings with even going to the cabin, we don't get him in that regard. We don't see him until the second chapter. But if you do other things like listen to the narrator and try to go kill the princess, he'll like show up earlier and make commentary. So, and it's all the same voice actor, like the narrator and all these like all the male voices, which are all like the narrations and the voice of the whoever and the voice of the hero. They're all the same guy, which is pretty good. Okay. So then, since we can't wander around, we just have to go to the cabin. And we head to the cabin, and they mention that it's like super crazy in here looking. It looks like a whole bunch of different types of cabins all smashed into each other. And there's like a mirror that we can go like, hey, what the fuck's wrong with that mirror? And the narrator's like, I don't see a mirror. I don't know what you're talking about. So we go up, because the whole point of this first playthrough is to ignore the narrator and do everything he doesn't want to do. So we head up to the mirror, and he's like, look, it's just a wall. And it's like, well, we can't see ourselves in the mirror, so let's wipe it clean. So we reach up to wipe it clean, and then the narrator like gets rid of it somehow with his like magic powers or something. And we see that we have like some sort of like lizard arm, and then the mirror like officially disappears. Then there's a table in the room with like a blade on it, and so we choose to pick up the blade and throw it out the window, and the contrarian loves it. Once we head through the door leading to the stairs, they're going to take us to the basement where the princess is being held, which we have to do at this point. Like sometimes you have choices, and sometimes it's just like you will continue forward. It's like this crazy Lovecraftian staircase. There's like all these stairs going in different directions. Some look like they're going up, some going down. We hear like the princess. She sounds like really like demonic, if you will. And then it's like you can take the soft path, the normal path, or the hard path. And I'm like, fucking take the hard path. Let's do it. And as we walk down the hard path, which is left stairs, or the harsh path, it becomes like super cold and super spiky, and then we start like fading out and losing it, and we're seeing like scenes from the game, and the scenes are starting to fade out, and the narrator starts describing us losing our mind, and then all of a sudden we hear a voice, and it's like, hello, and it's the princess, and we're standing in the basement, and she's just like chained up against the wall. And she's like, why are you just standing there staring at me? And it's like, I don't know. So we chat for a bit, and then she starts splitting like the scene, like there's like her, and then it splits, and there's like a different personality, and it splits like 5 times, like a cracking of a mirror, right? There's like normal, sad, angry, monster, cautious, and then when the narrator, it's all of a sudden the narrator like disappears, so it's just the voice of the contrarian and the voice of the hero, and then all the princesses like merge into this like abomination with like multiple heads, and like one's dead, and like one's happy, and one's sad, and one's scared, and then they're all like, there's like all these hands and whatnot. And then she disappears, and the mirror returns, and we look into the mirror, and we're like a monster. Like we have like lizard arms, and then we have like scary face. It's like a masked in darkness and like a hood of some sort. And then boom, we're back in the woods. But this time there's no voices. We just like make a step forward, and then instead of the cabin being there on the hill, there's the princess, like the merged Cthulhu thing. And then she says a whole bunch of cryptic shit, which essentially is that the princess is a vessel for like this being, and this being like awoke within this being, or within the princess, and that she wants to send us back to like get more perspectives, because she doesn't feel like she has enough perspectives to like make a decision on what like the plan ahead is or whatnot. And so she asks if she can send us back or we can die. And I'm like, hell yeah, princess, let's go. So like, okay. And she's like, all right, then we die. And then we start again at chapter 1, and it's chapter 1, the hero and the princess. And this time I'm going to let's just listen to her and go kill her. So we do. So we head to the cabin. We just walk in, we grab the blade, we head down the stairs, we find the princess. She's super sassy this time, instead of being like kind of crazy evil, or like, yeah, she's more sassy. She's like, what are you doing here? What do you think, you're really going to stab me with that? Good luck. That kind of thing, right? And so we just walk up and stab her, and then she's dead. And we're like, cool. So then we head out of the cabin, and we open the cabin door, and we're like stuck in some sort of limbo state. And it's like, are you happy being here? And we're like, yeah, I guess we're happy being here. And then it's like, congratulations, you got the good ending. And the good ending is literally like a child like drew a picture of balloons and said good ending on it, like with crayons. And it's like, what? And the princess is like, get back here. And so we come back to the cabin, and it's just, we're stuck here, and the narrator's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be happy here, blah, 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 blah. And the hero's like, hey man, you got to kill yourself. This is ridiculous. So we head back downstairs to the princess. She's all skeleton now. And we pick up the knife, and then we kill ourselves. And that takes us to chapter 2, the specter. So now instead of the voice of the contrarian, we have the voice of the cold. So we're back in the woods, and the voice of the cold's like, hey, you already killed the princess, didn't do anything. This guy's a liar. And we're like, yeah. And the narrator's like, I don't remember that. And it's like, yeah, because you're an asshole and you're a liar. So we discussed with the cold, the killing the princess before, and the narrator continues to be super sketchy and such. And he says we're special. It's something about a prophecy. So we decide to explore around here instead of going to the cabin. And he keeps trying to get us to go to the cabin. But we wander around some more. And then this time, because he can't get us to the cabin, the whole world starts to fade. And in the empty spaces, so it's like the whole world fades. We like disappear into nothingness. And then we see like hands, like the princess hands, obviously, like reaching around to us and comforting us and stuff and bringing oblivion. And then we like shatter. And then it's back to chapter 1 again. The hero of the princess. So this time it's like, all right, let's head back to the cabin and talk to the princess. No knife this time. So we head back to the cabin. We go back down the stairs. This time we're like, no knife. The princess is much more soft and kind this time. And we tell her, hey, we're here to rescue you. And there's no keys around here. And it's like, I don't know if we can just like break the bonds. So we're like, hey, and the hero, I think the voice of the hero is like, maybe we should check upstairs, find a key. We're like, yeah, okay, sounds good. So we head upstairs to look and see if we can find a key, but the door is shut on us, so we can't get out. And then it's locked. With no way through the door, we decide we're going to go ahead and head back down. The narrator then sasses us about not having the blade and whatnot, and so we return to the princess. As we do that, she says that we can do it together, and then she starts to gnaw her arm off. And all the voices are kind of concerned about how blatantly, or how she just has like no problem, just be like, all right, fuck it. And she literally is like gnawing through the bone on her arm to get it like out from the thing. And then the blade shows up, which is super convenient. We think another choice here. We can we can slay her at this point, or we can help her cut her hand off. So we go to help her cut her hand off so that we can free her. And then we're like, all right, hooray, let's get out of here and let's leave. And the narrator states that like, no, you cannot let her escape. He then takes over our body through like the power of his narration, and he tries to kill the princess. And then we have all these options that are like, slay the princess, slay the princess, slay the princess. And then amidst all that, we have one that's like resist. And so we do. And then he tries to kill the princess, or we give her a warning that like we're going to strike. We're like, look out. And so she dodges out of the way before she can get strucken. And then she turns around and she's like, oh, you're being controlled. And then again, it's like we have slay the princess, slay the princess, slay the princess, and then we can choose to resist. And so of course I choose to resist. So as we're resisting, she takes a knife out of her hand and like apologizes, and then she starts stabbing like very clumsily at us. And as we're like very slowly dying from being stabbed a whole bunch of times, we're like having a conversation with the voices in our head that are like, well, too bad she's bad at stabbing and whatnot. And then eventually we die, which leads us to chapter 2, the damsel. So we're back in the forest, and this occurs every time. And just kind of like, I kind of mentioned this before, but again, this is a non-erotic visual novel. I'm going to say it out loud to myself so I don't slip. Okay, so it's like a psychological horror visual novel made in Ren'Py, right? So there's a lot of similarities to a lot of other things that I engage with if you follow me on BitChute. That being said, so because it's a visual novel, if you don't know anything about visual novels, just kind of reiterate what I kind of talked about before. There's so many paths you can choose, and every path is going to have different paths lead to different things and unlock things. The whole fun of like a visual novel is like uncovering all the different paths and the different choices you have to make to get to certain locations. And so that's this game. And so when I'm going through like this story that I'm kind of talking, I'm really just talking about my path, right? And when I review visual novels, I tend to just like, I'm not going to go over like every fucking story path. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to continue through the path that I did on my first run, and then I'm going to, talk as much as I feel like it about like the other choices and the other paths you can take and whatnot, because sometimes I'll like speed through the other paths because you can like hold control down on a lot of these Ren'Py games, including this one for the most part, and just kind of get to choices. And then once you have the choice action, then it's much easier to look and be like, okay, cool, that's what's or you could even like with most visual novels, once you've read like text, the game like registers that it's been read, and so when you're holding control down to like skip, it'll only skip those the things that you've already seen, which so you can like catch up to the stuff you missed, or different. You can get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm on a new path now, I can like read through this for realsy and whatnot. Okay. All that being said, again, this is just the path I took, so you don't have to do this by any stretch of imagination to enjoy or complete the game, because this game's pretty open-ended, including there's like multiple endings, but the endings are like each path has its own like conclusion or various conclusions and endings, and then there's like the final ending at the end of the game where you make several other choices that will give you like several other like endings to the game as a whole, if you will, based on the overarching narrative, which we haven't really gotten into. We kind of started it with like the crazy amalgamation of princesses and how she wants vessels, and for us to like relive through like life multiple times so that we can collect these vessels for her, which are like the various iterations of the princess as we conceive her through the chapters 2 and at some points chapter 3 if you get that far on a certain path. Anyway, Back to the story. So there's a lot of reiteration as we go through like the various vessels, because we have to collect so many vessels. Like I think you have to collect 3 to 5 roughly to get to the end, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so we're back at the forest. This time we're joined by the voice of the smitten. So instead of the voice of the contrarian, it's the voice of the smitten. And he's here to rescue his beloved, which is pretty good. So he puts a lot of pressure on the narrator. Like he takes a lot more control. Like the narrator's like, we're going to do this. And the voice of the smitten is like, nope, we're doing this instead. And the narrator's like, oh, fuck. And then we start talking at this point. You can do this every time after this point. That like, hey, we've done this multiple times. And the voice of the hero and the voice and the like tertiary voice, like the voice of the smitten, they will jump in and be like, yeah, we have done this before. And the voice of the narrator is like, I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't done that. And it seems like he's being super sketchy about this, which he is, but we find out more about that later. Anyway, so that, like I said, the hero backs us up that like literally we have done this before, and it's kind of sketchy and whatnot. But then he also talks about like, well, what happens if the world ends or we die? And he's like, well, it seems like very inconsequential. And he's like, no, it's very consequential. You don't want to die. And he's like, well, we died before and here we are. So like, fuck it. And then they talk about time travel versus alternative realities and stuff. And every time you go through one of these like vessel stories, you can get, you'll get like a slightly different conversation. Like the narrator and the hero will say exactly the same thing every time, but then the tertiary voice, the voice of the smitten or whoever, will have like completely new conversation dialogue. And I'm trying to recall if it has any effect on the narrator. I kind of think it doesn't, but maybe it has a little bit. Like maybe there's 1 or 2 lines that are different. So we can still refuse to kill the princess at this point, but then we just return to the cabin. We have no choice but to go in. And this time we go in, instead of being like a mess or just like the regular cabin from like when we actually tried to walk into the princess this time or kill the princess, it's super fancy. It's like so the damsel is like a princess, right? Like an actual princess. So the inside of this cabin now looks like a castle, like a nice castle, like a Disney princess castle. We get into an argument about the mirror. I do this every time, so I'm not going to keep bringing it up, because every time you're like, hey, there's a mirror, I don't see a mirror, there's just a wall. We walk up to the mirror. We go to like clean it up so we can look into it. It disappears, and then we go through the door, and we can either pick up the knife or don't pick up the knife. I tend to avoid picking up the knife as much as possible in this playthrough, but you can go ahead and pick it up and like kill her like every time. So then we head downstairs, and this time she looks super fancy. Like instead of just being like a princess in kind of like a raggedy dress, she's in like this beautiful, again, like a Disney princess gown from like when they, at the end of the movies, when they're like super fancy. And we ask her about what happened when we died. And she's like, well, after you died, you showed up here and we started talking and we chat a little bit. She's kind of, I don't want to say dumb, but like, it's not that she's being sketchy. She just is like answering the questions like very literally, if you will. And then we talk about rescuing her, and then the voice in the smitten, demand. Then this is one of the times the narrator is like trying to argue back, and the voice of the smitten's like, no, you're gonna do exactly what we say, because he's like, oh, it looks like she has tiny wrists, she can probably just pull her hand right through the thing, the chain holding her against the wall. And the narrator's like, that's not true. And the voice of smitten is like, you're gonna say exactly what I tell you to fucking say, asshole. And then the narrator's like, fine. She slips her hand out, and you're like, hooray. Fantastic. So we talk to her about what she wants to do. She wants to leave, so then we hold her hand and we leave. And the narrator shuts the door and locks it in our face. And then we're like, hey, let's team up and open the door. And she's like, sounds good. And so the narrator's like, God damn it. And so then we push our way through, and he starts demanding again we slay her with like the knife, and we're like, nah, not gonna do that. Then we talk about just staying in the cabin and like being happy here and doing whatever, never leaving, but then we decide that we're going to leave after all, after talking to her for a little bit. So we take our hand again, and we walk outside, and then all the voices like leave. And then it gets like cold. She's like, oh, it's cold out here. That's weird. And then she gets picked up by like all the hands and taken to like the vessel collector lady. And so then, and again, every time this happens, every time she gets collected, every time we finish one of these pathways and she gets collected up, the voice of the narrator like disappears. We get like a thing with a mirror, so then we can walk towards the mirror, and then we can like have a conversation with the voices. I always just ignore them. And so then we just like look in the mirror, and we look differently every single time based on the vessel that we're bringing back. And then we head to like the new world, or the inner world or whatever, and then we see like the hand holding the new princess, and then we can have like a conversation with old Hansy McGee and like her captured princess business. And so it's usually pretty cryptic. Like she talks in like riddles and circles and stuff. And the more you talk to her, the more it becomes like you start to like pick out stuff. But during this first conversation back, after we've collected like the first vessel, we ask her like the vessels, what she is, how is she growing, how she likes the contradiction of vessels that she's gathering or whatever. And then we learn at this point, because we make some comment about like, so why can't we do the same thing we did before? And she's like, oh, once you've done something, I've already had the vessel, I don't need you to do it again. So I lock that path off. So okay, that's good. We can't like stumble back into like a same path and be like, god damn it, I'm doing this again. So that's nice. We then talk about what to do next, and she's like, well, go get me more vessels, and you're like, got it. And so then we choose to die, and then we wake up and it's chapter 1 again, Hero and the Princess. So back to rescuing her. So this time we do the exact same thing we did in the last vessel run through, but this time I can't resist. Like, it's blocked off, so you can't do it. So I don't pick up the knife, and it seems like the big moments in this game are like, so the biggest moment is at the beginning when you're like, I refuse to go to the cabin, right? That gets you the stranger path or whatever, with like the craziness and the shattering of things and whatnot. So that's a stranger, and then for the damsel, and for this one, which is the witch, you got to not take the knife, right? And so there's like, if you take the knife or not take the knife, and when you not take the knife, so if you don't take the knife, do you slay the princess anyway, or do you not slay the princess? And then there's the if you take the knife and then you go down and you slay the princess, or then you refuse to slay the prince, right? So that the taking the knife or not taking the knife is like a huge moment, and then whether you slay the princess or don't slay the princess, and then like, when do you slay the princess? Like, do you just walk in and slay her, or do you like do some other bullshit? So that's really kind of determines the vessel paths. And I kind of explored this at some point, just to kind of like see multiple choices, because you can just like, you can save it like any time in these visual novel games on Ren'Py. So I just saved and then like ran through a bunch of like things to see what the various paths were, and then I just went with what I wanted to go with originally. So this time I don't take the knife down. But then since we can't resist, so the knife comes down just like before, and we pick it up like we have to, just like before. But and then we give her a warning like before. But this time, instead of being able to resist, we just slay her. So we attack her and we kill her, or we fight her and then she kills us. And then it goes to chapter 2, the witch. And this time we have the voice of the opportunist. And then we head to the cabin, and it's very earthy, like it's all made of like woody vines and stuff. So very much like a witch's house in the woods, or witch's cave, or whatever you'd imagine, like traditional like European lore. And this time the princess has a much more seductive voice, and then she very openly says that she knows us. And once we enter the basement, we see that it's like a tangled cave, and the princess is like a half beast. Like, she's got like a beast tail and stuff, and she's like more hunched over and stuff, like almost like the beast from Beauty and the Beast. So at this point she welcomes us back, and this starts happening every time as well, where like we have an argument with the narrator about how this has happened before, and then we come in and the princess like reiterates that like we have met before, but then it's like different amounts of like revelation, right? So like I said, the damsel is more coy about stuff, it seems, or not even coy, she's just more like straightforward, like, what happened after you killed me? Oh, then you showed up here and we started talking, and it's like, okay. But then the witch here talks about how we attacked her and then she killed us, right? And then she tried to leave, and then she like was imprisoned back here or whatever. So then the voices, we chat with the princess, and we mention like, why don't you just like release yourself from your bonds? And then she's like, oh yeah, I can easily do that. So she does. And then she mentions that we are the one who, like, why haven't you left before? Well, we're the one that gets allowed to leave and come back. So like, she had to wait for us anyway. And then we lead her up the stairs, and there's some conversation with the opportunist and everybody where they're like, I don't know if I trust her. Maybe we should not go ahead of her. Maybe we should make her go ahead of us. And like, the narrator keeps telling us to kill her or whatnot. But I'm a trusting fellow in my decision to play this round. So I'm like, no, let's go. So I lead the way up the stairs, and then she stabs us in the back with her claws, and we fall down on her. We both tumble back down into the cavern, and we like land and break our back, so we can't move. And then the voices tell us and berate us about how mistake we made. And then the princess is like, ha ha ha, you idiot. I'm gonna get out of here, and like, I got my revenge because you like tried to attack me before and something. And then she tries to stand up, but she's also broken, and she's also gonna die. So then we just lay there dying, and we have a nice little chit chat. And then all of a sudden she's like, I feel cold. And then hands reach up and like pull her out so we go back to the mirror, do all the mirror shit. Then we go back to the hill by ourselves without the voices and have more cryptic bullshit. And then, okay, cool, sounds good. Return to chapter 1. This time, we take the knife, but then we go downstairs, and instead of killing her like all the way back. Instead of just like shuffling off and doing the right quote unquote right thing and getting the quote unquote good ending and stabbing her, we go down there and we like play around with the knife and we just have a chit chat about who she is, how long she's been here. She's super vague, and then we try to release her. The door gets locked. We take the knife, we cut off her hand, and then the narrator tries to take over, and we resist. And so then she takes a knife and slits our throat because we're possessed by the narrator, which leads to chapter 2, The Prisoner. So this time we get the voice of the skeptic this time. So the narrator tries to trick us by having us pull like an envelope out of our pocket that says like evidence. And then it says like evidence, I promise, I really, really, really promise that if you leave with the princess, it'll end the world. Swearsies. Or like some bullshit. And we're like, nah, I don't believe it. The skeptic's like, fuck that, that's stupid. So then we head to the cabin, and this time it's like a prison, obviously, because it's the prisoner, and we have to take the knife this time. The skeptic forces us to pick up the knife, so we have no choice. We do the mirror thing, whatever. We head down, and this time she's super chained up. Like, she's got a chain around neck and both wrists, when in most cases she just has a chain around one wrist or whatever. And then the skeptic points out like the unused chain, and they mention that there's always like an unused chain here. That's weird, right? And we're like, yeah, that is weird. So then we decide we're just going to walk up and sit next to her, and then she's like, you should stay away. And then she talks about how we met before and all this stuff. And then the narrator finally admits that he is aware of like a second chance mechanic, and that it's a contingency plan and part of this whole thing. And so we discuss this a bit with the voices in our head. And then the narrator keeps talking about how he's keeping information from us to protect us, because if we knew, it would like make it harder to do what we got to do or something. And then we ask her about like what happened after we died, and she's like, after she killed us, she tried to leave, but then she just like, the whole place like transformed, and then she was like here, and so she couldn't leave, and she was back in chains and whatnot. So we said, okay, fuck it, let's go check this chain out on the wall. So we inspect the chain on the wall, and it reaches out and grabs onto our neck, and then like some magical force or magnetism or whatever shoots the dagger across the room, so there's nothing we can do about it. And so we just hang out with the princess, and we ask her some questions, and she's very curt. And it's like, hey, cool, I guess we're stuck. And so we just sit there for a while, and then the skeptic's like, well, we're going to starve to death, so I guess that's a thing. And then that doesn't happen, and the skeptic's like, well, it's been all this time, like the narrator says, the whole place should be like crumbling down to nothing. And the narrator's like, fine. So he starts describing how the whole prison is like falling apart and getting worse and worse. And then the skeptic brings up like the starvation thing again, and then finally like the walls of the prison collapse, so like the what is it called? The prison is like open to the air right up above. It's just like, well, there it is, we're free. And then at that point the narrator gets quiet, because the princess is like, hey, it's really cold out here now that we've escaped. And then she's like, and then the hands come up and grab her, and then again we head through the mirror, we ignore the voices, we go to the hill, and then she talks about what's beyond the long quiet, which is the first we've heard of that in this playthrough. And then we talk about like, oh, there's people and there's stars and shit. And then she mentions how people are not like us, how they're fragile, they're finite, and we are not. We are like eternal or something. And then we bring up all the voices and the narrator specifically, and then she kind of like ignores all that, doesn't really have any comments about that whatsoever. And then she mentions that there's one more vessel that she needs. So okay, we got to go back and get one more vessel. So we return, chapter 1, The Hero and the Princess. So at this point, again, I'm like, okay, I got one more shot. Let's see if I'm going to be a little more pedantic, because I want to end this on like a path that I choose, not just some path I stumble into. So I fuck around a little bit, and then I decide to go on the pathway where I go in there, I try talking to her, and then we go to kill her with like our bare fists, and then she fights back by breaking like the chain off the fucking wall. And so we punch at each other, and then finally she kills us. And then we awake, and it's chapter 2, The Adversary. And the voice this time is the voice of the stubborn, and all he wants to do is go and fight the princess again. And so we go, the cabin's different, and she calls us out wanting a fight. And we head down there, and she's like much taller. She's got like devil horns, cloven feet, a devil tail, and all that stuff. She's like, let's fight. And we're like, at some point, it's like, do you want to take the dagger? I'm like, no, fisticuffs, let's do this. So like, no, let's fight. So we go in there, and we like punch, and then she like kills us. But then the voice of stubborn's like, no, get up. And so we get up, and we fight her again, and then she kills us again. And then the voice of stubborn's like, do it again. And so we stand up again and fight her again. Lord. But eventually she kills us for good this time. And then instead of like going back to chapter 1 or whatever, we get chapter 3, The Fury. And like, that's new, because I've never had a chapter 3. But every, like the damsel, the witch, the prisoner, they all have a chapter 3 if you like play your cards right. So just heads up. Anyway, so this time we have the voice of the stubborn and the voice of the contrarian, which is fun. And this time the world is all fucking jacked up. So we head to the cabin and the princess. That it's all jacked up. Instead of like the mirror being on the wall and there's a door out of here, there's just a giant mirror where the door should be. And when we head down the stairs, we see that she's like this giant monster, and she's like pulled all her skin back, and her heart's just like sitting out there, and she looks crazy, and she's bigger and more menacing, all that stuff. And then it's like, hey, we're gonna fight. She knocks us to shit out, and then she like tears all her skin off, and then we get up and start pushing towards her again, and then she tears all her muscles out of her system, so we're just a skeleton. And then we climb out of that, and then we start moving to her with just bones, and then she like decimates our bones. And then somehow we use like the power of our stubbornness or just our will to like reach out with some sort of mysterious force and like stab her right in the heart. And as she's like dying from us stabbing her in the heart, the hands come up and grab her. And so again, we do the thing with we lose the voices, and then we see the mirror, and we walk up to the mirror, and when we look in the mirror, there's like nothing there. But then like at the corner of our eye, we see that there is something, and that something is the narrator. Oh! And at that point, the mirror like cracks in two. And then we have a little chit chat, and he talks about we're never supposed to see him like this. We chat about that. We chat about all the different things, and then how like the narrator is like he's like an echo of some being that is like the creator of us and the princess, and that she's like death, or she calls her like the shifting mound, and then we're the silent quiet, the quiet silence or whatever. Or the long quiet, that's what it is, the long quiet, and how we were made to like kill death so that people could not suffer death and not be sad Eponymous anymore. And then we talk about like her and how she becomes whatever people like wish her to be. So like all the different like chapter 2s are like how we interact with her in like it's based on like the emotions and thoughts we have about her based on what she did before. So like the damsel, for example, she was like very clumsy and very kind and nice, and so that's that. And then like the prisoner, she was like, more kind of sassy and arrogant, but at the same time, like she kind of needed, yeah. And then she was like more smooth, like a smooth criminal, right? Like she just like killed us in like one smooth go. And so then when he came through, she was like more cold and calculating and more of kind of like a prisoner, right? Like a criminal. And then with the witch, it's more about betrayal and yada, 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 right? So it's all kind of related. So like how we deal with her changes who she is because she changes based on what the person interacting with her is. And that's like the different vessels that the shifting mound is trying to gather and whatnot. And that, before it fades, oh yeah, then he talks about how we have to slay her, and we tell him that we're not going to slay her. So then we head to the cabin. There's nothing there. Like normally we'd see like the shifting mound as we now know her, like the multiple princesses. But this time, so now we're getting to like ending cat territory. Right, so that's all the vessel stories are done at this point. I got my 4 vessels. I thought it was 3, so I was wrong. So I collected 4. And we head to the cabin. There's nothing there. Then we get assaulted by like this mass of princesses. And then we just see like a mass of princesses like climbing up to like the main princess, who's like 3 princesses and all this stuff. And she starts talking about how she's finally woken, that she understands that she's like the god of death or whatever, the god of change or whatnot. And that we were sent there, and that the 2 of us were like one, and that we were split. And we were there to like kill her so that like the death could not happen or something. And we get to like a very philosophical argument, and a lot of points during this time frame, you can choose to kill her or kill yourself, or you can agree with her and merge with her, or you can argue with her and have different kind of semantic arguments and whatnot. And all the different arguments and the death or like not dying and like all the choices you make here can lead to like different endings. And I didn't add it up, but I want to say there's probably like 5 kind of endings here or so. You could probably look it up pretty easily. I'm not going to do it. Then at some point, if we're just very indignant and or she gets very indignant if we keep like pushing back against her and like using our shared humanity against her, then the voice of the hero will show up, and he'll be like, hey, let me help you out there. And so then again, with the endings, you can choose to like, okay, I'm going to work with you, and then we can work on like either slaying her or like freeing her or whatever, or you can be like, no, I'm going to go it alone, and then you can choose to like talk, because at that point when the hero shows up, it's like, hey, you pushed it to a point where now you can like go inside each other or something, the combined selves, and then you can like have a discussion, and then you can go inside, so you can like kill her here or try to kill her here or merge with her, or you can go back to like the cabin to the beginning, and the hero will help you do that, and then you can like deal with her either by yourself or with the extra voices, which is mostly the voice of the hero plus, well, for me it was the voice of the contrarian, so I don't know if it's always like that. And so then we go back to the beginning with the hero, And the Contrarian, yeah, he shows back up. We have a little chit chat. We head back to the cabin. The winding path is there from all the way at the beginning, right? From like the first Contrarian point of view. And then, but only the one path. There's not like the hard path and the soft path. There's just like the straightforward path. So we take that down. And then she's waiting. And she's like at the three heads or the three faces. And she's like, oh, hey, what's up? And we're like, hey, what's up, girl? And she's like much more put together, much more calm. She's like integrated all these different vessels, and instead of like adapting, she's like merging into something that is like her own volition of what she wants out of existence or whatever. And so we talk more about existence. We talk about life, what she wants. We tell her that we don't want to be a god and that we don't want to have all this stuff, that we just want to be with her and just have like a good life. We then talk about leaving, and at this point, you know, again, it's like you could choose to slay her, you could choose to go with her, whatever you want to do. But what occurs for me is that I take her hand and then we head up the stairs, and then she looks back and talks about how she feels a pull to stay, that there's like a comfort to staying and just going along with the flow that she already has like set up. But that, you know, there is some excitement, even though there's fear about leaving the cabin and moving on with our lives without knowing what's going to happen. And so then we take her hand again, and then we confess that we love her, and then she confesses that she loves us, and then we mutually like open the door and leave, and that is the end of the game. Fantastic, fucking fantastic, super great. Okay, so you get a little bit of credits. It's always shocking to me how many credits some of these games like require to like satisfy themselves. But they did have a lot of localizations. You can play this game in a lot of games. I was trying to play it in Italian for a little bit, but some of my reading in Italian is not the best. So it was kind of dragging it out. Anyway, but that's just subtitles. It's always spoken in English, if you will. All right, so this game is great. Highly recommend if you like visual novels. If you don't like visual novels, there's absolutely no reason to play this game. Like the story is very, very good. Like visual novels fall right into my line of like interest. It's a lot like JRPGs and like other games that I find very interesting. Because one of the things I like about games the most, if you are new to following any of my works, is the story aspect, right? Which is why I do these like story reviews and retellings or whatever, or like, well, I give my thoughts about the whole situation. So with that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I may go back through and just kind of like see what some of the other vessel end lines have to do, just because I'm curious and I find it interesting. I'm not gonna like talk about it here. It's just like a lot, and it's not super relevant to like the overarching concept of what I'm trying to do here, which just kind of give you like a little taste of the story, if you will, and encourage you that like, hey, if any of this sounds good, that sounds interesting to you. Like this is one of those games where it's like I spoiled stuff here, obviously, but it's like reading through all this on your own, it's very interesting. Again, the voice acting is pretty good. The guy especially, the woman's like, okay, the princess that is. But then all the different pathways have their own little storylines that we haven't even addressed, right? And there's various endings to each one of those pathways. So there's really one of the best things about visual novels is that you kind of make your own story as you go. Like it's a choose your own adventure, but like up the level, because it's got like music and voice acting and all that good shit, and it's really enjoyable. And there's just so many different things you can do, and then you get to like the ending, and then there's multiple endings too. So like the replay value is pretty high, right? In this game, I think I maybe played it for 3 hours max, just for like this initial run through, and that's like stopping to take like screenshots so that I could like, when I put this video together, you're going to see like various screenshots from my playthrough, and just kind of like, you know, having to deal with like real life stuff like the baby waking up and whatnot. But yeah, this game's definitely highly recommend, and I enjoyed it, and it's kind of horror-y, I guess. One more to go. But go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.